The alien research ship floated silently above the blue planet called Earth. Inside the observation deck, a young alien girl named Lyra watched the humans with deep curiosity. Her silver eyes glowed as she pressed her face close to the viewing screen. She had studied many species in the galaxy, but humans were always different, always strange. Today, she was about to see something that would change her thinking forever. Lyra's mission was simple. She had been ordered by her teachers to learn about human behavior. She was told that humans were fragile, weak, and easy to harm. But the more she studied them, the less she believed that. There was something hidden inside the humans, something that made them dangerous in ways no alien expected. In the dining hall of the human ship, a man named Daniel sat with his fellow soldiers. They laughed, joked, and placed strange plates of food in front of each other. The smells filled the air, strong and powerful, almost burning to Lyra's sensitive nose. She covered her mouth and whispered, "How can they eat this?" The humans did not seem to notice her watching from the corner of the room. Daniel picked up a strange object from his plate. It was red, long, and shining with oil. Lyra's translator whispered the word in her ear, "chili pepper." Her mind froze. She had read in her alien medical text that such a plant was poison to most species. The chemical inside it could burn flesh, damage stomachs, and cause unbearable pain. But the human simply smiled and bit into it like it was nothing more than fruit. Lyra gasped softly. She expected him to collapse, to scream, to fall in agony. Instead, Daniel laughed as his face grew red and sweat appeared on his forehead. His friends clapped their hands and shouted cheers. He grabbed a glass of water and swallowed, but he was alive, still strong. Lyra shook her head. "Impossible," she whispered. "No species should survive that." She looked at her datapad, scrolling through alien reports. The spice inside that pepper could kill her people instantly. Even a small drop on her tongue would leave her choking for air. And yet, the human had eaten it whole. Her hands trembled as she wrote in her notes. "Humans can survive poison food." Another human slid a strange box across the table. Daniel opened it and pulled out a slice of old, smelly cheese. Lyra nearly gagged at the sight. The smell alone was like rotting flesh. Her species would never allow such filth inside their bodies. But Daniel and his friends ate it happily. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. She whispered again, "They're not dying, they are laughing." Minutes passed, and Lyra's shock only grew stronger. She saw humans drink a black liquid called coffee. It was bitter and acidic, dangerous to many species. Yet they used it to wake themselves with energy. She saw them eat raw onions, sour fruits, and even fermented food that looked spoiled. Every bite made her stomach turn, but the humans grew louder, stronger, and full of life. Finally, Daniel noticed Lyra staring from the shadows. He stood up with a friendly smile and walked toward her. Lyra froze, unsure if she should run or stay. The human held out a small piece of chocolate. His voice was calm. "Don't worry, it's safe." Lyra's heart raced. She had studied this substance before. For many aliens, chocolate was toxic. Her instincts told her not to accept it. But Daniel's warm eyes and easy smile made her hesitate. Slowly, with shaking hands, she took the piece. She raised it to her mouth, fear tightening her chest. Then, with a quick breath, she placed it on her tongue. The sweetness exploded across her senses. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. Instead of poison, it was pleasure. Warmth spread through her body, and she felt stronger, not weaker. Her voice trembled as she whispered, This cannot be." Daniel chuckled and returned to his table, leaving her in silence. Lyra sat down quickly, holding her stomach. Nothing bad happened. No pain, no sickness. Instead, she felt calm, almost happy. Her datapad slipped from her hands as her mind raced. If humans could eat poison, if their stomachs could turn danger into strength, then they were not fragile at all. They were survivors, stronger than any report had claimed. As the night passed, Lyra wrote her final note for the day. Her silver eyes shone with fear and wonder. "Humans eat the impossible," she wrote, "and I must find out how." Little did she know, this was only the beginning of her discovery. The human stomach was not just a tool for eating, it was a weapon, a shield, and perhaps the greatest secret of their survival. Lyra could not sleep that night. Her mind was filled with the image of Daniel eating the fiery red chili pepper. She kept seeing the way he laughed while her body told her it should have been impossible. The chocolate she tasted still lingered on her tongue, sweet and warm. For her people, it should have been poison, yet it had given her strength. It was a mystery that no alien scientist had ever solved. And now, Lyra decided she would uncover the truth herself. The next day, she returned to the human dining area. She walked slowly, keeping her hood low so the soldiers would not notice her. Her alien companions had warned her not to go near the humans when they ate. They said human food was dangerous, unpredictable, and forbidden to even touch. But Lyra's curiosity was stronger than her fear. If humans could survive eating poison, then perhaps their bodies were far more powerful than the galaxy believed. She hid behind a tall stack of supply crates. From there, she could see the long metal tables where the humans gathered. Plates of strange meals were placed before them, each one smelling sharp and heavy. Lyra's stomach twisted, but her eyes stayed fixed on Daniel. He was eating again, this time with more laughter. He placed something round and thin into his mouth, dripping with melted cheese. Her translator whispered, "Pizza." Lyra narrowed her eyes. She scanned her data pad quickly. Pizza was a mixture of bread, cheese, and spice plants. For her kind, it would be a toxic mix of bacteria and acid. Yet Daniel swallowed slice after slice, unharmed. Lyra whispered to herself, "What are you, human?" Her voice trembled, but her curiosity only grew stronger. She wanted to test it, not on him, but on herself. If she dared to taste more human food, maybe she would find the secret hidden inside their stomachs. It was forbidden, yes, but her heart told her it was necessary. She waited until the dining hall grew quiet. One by one, the soldiers left, laughing and patting Daniel on the back. At last, only scraps of food were left on the tables. Lyra's hands shook as she stepped out from her hiding place. Her eyes darted left and right, but no one was watching. She reached the table and stared at the remains of the meal. Half a slice of pizza rested on the edge of a plate, its cheese hardening as it cooled. A cup of black liquid, coffee, still steamed faintly. Beside it, a red pepper had been cut in half, the seeds shining like fire. Lyra's breathing grew shallow. Every instinct told her to turn away, to leave before it was too late. But she remembered Daniel's smile, the way he had given her chocolate without fear. She clenched her fists and whispered, "If he can survive this, then so can I." Her trembling fingers reached for the pizza. She tore off the smallest piece and raised it to her mouth. Her throat tightened as she chewed. The taste was sharp, salty, and strange. For a moment, she felt her stomach twist, but then, slowly, the flavor melted into warmth. Her body did not collapse, her vision did not blur. Instead, she felt a strange spark of energy. Her lips parted as she whispered, "It's good." Encouraged, she turned her eyes to the cup of coffee. Her hand shook as she lifted it. The bitter smell stung her nose, but she forced herself to sip. The liquid was strong, burning down her throat. Her chest tightened, her heart raced. For a terrifying second, she thought she had made a mistake. But then, she felt her mind sharpen, her thoughts quicken. The exhaustion she carried vanished. She gasped, staring at the cup in disbelief. "This is power," she whispered. Her final test sat before her. The half pepper gleamed with fire. Lyra's fingers trembled as she picked it up. She remembered how Daniel had eaten it whole. Her mouth went dry. Her instincts screamed no, but her curiosity pushed her forward. She bit the smallest piece, just enough to taste. Instant fire erupted across her tongue. Her throat burned, her eyes watered. She staggered back, clutching her mouth. The pain was unlike anything she had felt before. It spread through her like liquid fire. Tears streamed down her silver cheeks. She thought she would collapse, but she held on. Her breath came in sharp gasps, but she was alive. Through the pain, she whispered, "Now I understand." Suddenly, a deep voice echoed across the room. "What are you doing?" Lyra froze. She turned slowly and saw Daniel standing at the door, his eyes locked on her. The half-eaten pepper was still in her hand. Her face was wet with tears, her chest rising and falling quickly. Daniel walked toward her, his steps calm but heavy. He looked down at the plate, then back at her. His voice was quiet but serious. "That food is not for you. It can kill your kind." Lyra tried to speak, but her throat still burned. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "Then why does it make you stronger?" Daniel stopped, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he gave a small smile, not of joy, but of warning. "Because, little one," he said softly, "humans were born on a world that tries to kill us every day, and we learn to eat the danger instead of running from it." Lyra's eyes widened. Her data pad slipped from her hand, falling to the floor. She realized then that she had stepped into a truth far bigger than she expected. Humans were not fragile at all. They were survivors of a deadly planet, and their stomach was proof of their unbreakable will. As Daniel turned to leave, Lyra whispered a final thought into the silence. If they can eat fire and laugh, what else can they survive? Her fear grew, but so did her fascination. She knew this was only the beginning of her forbidden test. The next day, Lyra kept her distance from the human dining hall. Her mouth still remembered the fire of the pepper. Her chest still carried the strange energy of coffee, and her mind still echoed Daniel's words. "We learn to eat the danger instead of running from it." Those words haunted her like a warning and a secret at the same time. She sat alone in her research chamber, staring at her datapad. Her notes were filled with words like impossible and unbreakable. Her hand shook as she drew diagrams of human stomachs. She wrote questions again and again. Why did poison become food for them? Why did pain become strength? Why did danger become joy? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. The door slid open, and Daniel stepped inside. He carried a small box in his hands. His calm eyes looked at her as if he had already guessed her secret. Lyra stood quickly, her silver cheeks warming with embarrassment. "I should not have taken the food," she said softly. Daniel shook his head, his voice gentle. "You wanted answers, I respect that." He placed the box on her table and slid it toward her. "Then take this as your first challenge," he said. Lyra's eyes widened. She opened the box slowly. Inside were several small objects, round, shiny, and covered in bright colors. Her translator whispered, "Candy." She looked up in confusion. "This does not look dangerous," she said. Daniel's smile grew wider. "Sometimes danger hides in sweetness." Lyra hesitated, but curiosity pulled her closer. She picked up a small red candy and placed it in her mouth. It melted quickly, flooding her tongue with sugar. Her body felt no pain, no fire, only a rush of strange energy. Her silver eyes widened. "It feels like light inside me," she whispered. Daniel leaned against the wall, watching her carefully. "That is only the beginning," he said. Then he pulled out another object from his pocket. It was dark brown, wrapped in thin foil. He unwrapped it and placed it in her hand. Her translator whispered again, "Chocolate bar." She remembered the small piece he had given her before. This time she took a larger bite. The taste was sweet, smooth, almost addictive. She closed her eyes, feeling warmth spread through her chest. But this time it was different. Her heartbeat quickened, her thoughts raced. It felt almost overwhelming. She gasped and dropped the rest of the chocolate onto the table. "It is too much," she said, trembling. Daniel nodded. "That is the point," he explained. "Our food is not just for survival. It pushes us, it challenges us, it makes us endure." He stepped closer, his voice firm. "If you want to understand humans, then you must face our food not as taste, but as trial." Lyra's mind spun with confusion and fear. A trial? You mean your meals are tests of strength? She asked. Daniel's eyes hardened. Yes, every day on Earth was a test. The water was not always safe. The plants could poison us. The animals could kill us. We learned to take what was dangerous and make it ours. His words echoed through her like thunder. Her body still shook from the chocolate. She realized now that each bite of human food was not only nourishment, but proof of their survival history. Daniel reached back in a box and pulled out something small and red. It was another chili pepper, smaller but sharper. He placed it on the table between them. This is your first challenge, he said. Lyra's eyes widened, fear twisting her stomach. I tasted one before. I nearly burned alive, she whispered. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. But you survived. The silence in the chamber grew heavy. Lyra stared at the pepper, her mind torn between fear and determination. She remembered her teachers calling humans weak. She remembered her people laughing at Earth as a primitive world. But she also remembered Daniel's laughter as he ate fire without falling. She clenched her fists, her silver eyes glowing with resolve. If this is the challenge, I will face it, she whispered. She picked up the pepper, her hand shaking. Her lips touched the surface, and a memory of fire flashed in her mind. She bit down, the burning pain flooding her mouth instantly. Her throat screamed, her eyes filled with tears. She staggered, gripping the edge of the table. But she refused to spit it out. Her body trembled, but she swallowed. The fire spread through her chest, her lungs, her veins. It felt like she was being consumed. Yet inside the pain, there was also strength. Her vision blurred, but she stood tall. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I will not fall. Daniel's expression softened as he watched. He stepped forward and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Good, he said quietly. You begin to understand. Lyra gasped for breath, her chest still burning. But inside her, a strange pride grew. She had faced the impossible and survived. She realized then that humans did not just eat for hunger. They ate to prove their will against the universe itself. As Daniel left the chamber, Lyra sank into her chair. Her body trembled, her lips burned, her eyes watered. But she whispered to herself with a shaky smile, the challenge has only begun. Lyra woke the next morning with her throat still burning from the pepper. Her body felt weak, but inside her chest was a strange new strength. She had faced the fire and survived, and that survival made her feel closer to the humans than ever before. But questions filled her mind like storms. What made humans so resistant? Why could their bodies endure things that destroyed others? And could this hidden power be measured, tested, and proven? Her alien teachers would call her foolish for even thinking of such things. But Lyra was not afraid of rules anymore. She had tasted their food, she had felt its fire, and now she wanted answers, not theories. So she decided to begin her own secret experiment, one that no alien before her had dared to try. She slipped into the human storage bay late at night. The room was filled with shelves of packaged meals, glowing with labels and warnings. Her silver eyes scanned the names, some strange, some frightening. She picked up packets of dried meat, jars of fermented plants, and cans of liquid with bubbles inside. Her data pad hummed quietly as she scanned each one. The readings made no sense. The levels of acid, sugar, and bacteria should have been toxic to any life form. And yet, humans consume them daily. Lyra whispered to herself. Their stomach is a battlefield. She carried the samples back to her chamber and set them out on her desk. Carefully, she divided them into small portions. One by one, she would test them not just by taste, but by recording every reaction. Her notes filled quickly. Heart rate, temperature, breath, all written in trembling script. Her hands shook, but her determination was unshaken. The first test was simple. She sipped a drink called soda. The bubbles burned her tongue like tiny explosions. She gasped but forced herself to swallow. Her data pad beeped wildly, showing her pulse rising. Her chest thudded with energy. It was not poison, it was power. She wrote quickly. Soda increases alertness, but overloads senses. The second test was harder. She tried dried meat coated in strange spices. Her people never ate animals, they only consumed plants. But the flavor filled her with warmth, even as her stomach twisted in protest. Her body trembled, but she stayed upright. Her datapad flashed red warnings. Still, she whispered, I endure. The third test nearly broke her. A jar of fermented plants, sauerkraut, her translator called it. The smell alone made her eyes water. Her mind screamed no, but she forced a bite in her mouth. Sourness exploded across her tongue. She gagged, almost dropping the jar. But as the taste settled, a strange calm filled her chest. Her datapad readings showed improved digestion. Her hands shook as she wrote, Impossible, poison becomes medicine. Hours passed, and Lyra's table became a battlefield of crumbs, jars, and half-empty drinks. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but her mind burned with discovery. Each human food carried a story of survival. Every bite was a weapon forged against a hostile world, and she began to see the truth. Humans had not simply adapted to danger, they had embraced it. They had turned pain into pleasure, poison into nourishment, weakness into strength. As she recorded her last note, the door slid open without warning. Daniel stepped inside, his eyes scanning the mess of food on her desk. His expression was unreadable. Lyra froze, her datapad still glowing with numbers. He stepped closer, his voice quiet but firm. So, you have been experimenting. Lyra lowered her head, ashamed. I had to know, she whispered. I had to understand why your kind can eat the impossible. Daniel studied her face for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he did not scold her. Instead, he gave a small smile. You're braver than most of your kind, he said, but you are also reckless. Our food is not made for you. It could kill you if you take too much. Lyra clutched her datapad, her voice trembling. But don't you see, it is more than food. It is your weapon, your shield. It is what makes you strong. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. You are starting to understand, he said softly, but you are not ready for the next step. Lyra tilted her head, confusion filling her voice. Next step? She asked. Daniel leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Food is only the beginning. If you want to see the truth of humanity, you must face the stomach test. Her heart froze at the words. The stomach test. The phrase echoed in her mind like thunder. What could it mean? What trial was greater than eating fire and poison? Lyra's silver eyes burned with both fear and fascination. She nodded slowly, whispering, Then I will be ready. Daniel stepped back, his expression dark but respectful. Be careful what you ask for, little one, he said. Then he turned and left the chamber, leaving her alone with her scattered notes and trembling hands. Lyra sat in silence, her datapad glowing faintly on the desk. She whispered her final thought for the night. If food is only the beginning, then the true secret of humans may be far more terrifying. And with that, her secret experiment ended, but her true challenge was only about to begin. The next evening, Lyra was summoned to the human dining hall. She walked slowly, her heart heavy with both fear and curiosity. The room was brighter than usual, filled with soldiers sitting around long tables. At the center stood Daniel, waiting with calm eyes. Before him was a table covered in dishes, each stranger than the last. Lyra's stomach twisted at the sight. Her translator whispered the names one by one, but they all sounded like warnings. Daniel raised his hand, silencing the room. Tonight, he said, his voice steady, we show our guest the stomach test. The humans cheered, pounding the tables with their fists. Lyra froze in place. Her silver eyes darted to the foods before her. Bowls of fiery red peppers, plates of raw onions, sour pickles, and bubbling fermented drinks. There was even a dish of slimy creatures called oysters. Her breath caught. Every item on that table could kill her kind in seconds. And yet, Humans treated it like celebration. Daniel gestured to the first plate. He picked up a raw onion and bit into it as if it were fruit. The crunch echoed through the hall. Tears filled his eyes from the sting, but he laughed. The soldiers clapped and shouted, "More, more!" Lyra trembled, unable to look away. Daniel swallowed and said, "This is what we call endurance." Next, he grabbed a spoon and scooped the fiery red sauce on a bread. Lyra's datapad identified it instantly. Hot sauce, concentrated chili extract. Her throat burned just reading the data. Daniel took a bite, his face turning red, sweat rolling down his temple. But he smiled and held the bread high. The soldiers cheered louder. Lyra whispered, "He is burning alive, and yet he celebrates." Then came the strangest dish of all, a bowl of fermented beans, black and sticky. The translator whispered, "Natto, from Earth's eastern lands." The smell reached her nose, and she nearly staggered back. It was pungent, foul like decay. But Daniel lifted the spoon and ate it without hesitation. He gagged, coughed once, then forced a grin. The soldiers roared with laughter. Lyra's silver eyes widened. She wrote quickly on her datapad. Humans turned disgust into pride. Finally, Daniel turned to her, his hand stretched out, holding a plate of mixed foods, a slice of onion, a piece of spicy pepper, and a spoonful of fermented beans. He placed it gently before her. The hall grew silent, every soldier watching. Lyra's throat tightened. Her people would call this suicide, but her heart whispered something else. This was the challenge she had been waiting for. This was the stomach test. Daniel's voice lowered, but every word carried weight. "If you want to understand humans, you must face this trial." Lyra stared at the plate, her silver hands trembling. Her mind screamed no, but her spirit whispered yes. She picked up the small portion with shaking fingers. Her body prepared for death. The onion burned. The pepper set fire to her tongue. The fermented beans twisted her stomach. Her chest convulsed. Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to spit it out, to fall to the floor, but she remembered Daniel's words. "We learn to eat the danger instead of running from it." And she forced herself to swallow. Silence filled the hall. Every human leaned forward, watching her. Lyra gasped, clutching her chest. Her body trembled, her silver skin flushed with heat. But she did not collapse. Her breaths came fast. Her eyes streamed with tears. Yet she was alive. Through the pain, she whispered, "I endure." The hall erupted with cheers. The soldiers pounded their fists, shouting her name. Daniel stepped forward, pride glowing in his eyes. "You faced the stomach test," he said, his voice carrying respect. "And you survived." Lyra could barely stand, but his words filled her with strength. She realized, then, that the test was never about the food alone. It was about willpower, about facing pain and choosing not to yield. As the celebration continued, Lyra sat at the edge of the table, breathing heavily. Her datapad glowed with readings beyond logic. Her pulse raced, her temperature spiked, but her body adapted. Her notes read, "Humans transform danger into strength. The stomach is proof of their survival instinct." Daniel leaned close, speaking only to her. "Now you see why other species fear us," he whispered. Lyra looked into his eyes, her voice trembling. "They call you fragile, but you are unbreakable." Daniel smiled faintly. "Fragile bones, yes, fragile skin, yes, but inside we are fire." The words burned in her mind as the humans continued their cheers. She had survived the impossible. She had faced the stomach test. And now, she understood that humanity's power was not only in weapons or machines. It was in their will to endure what no other species dared. That night, as she returned to her chamber, she whispered to herself, "If they can survive this, then what else can they endure?" Her fear deepened, but so did her fascination. The humans were not weak. They were warriors of survival, and their stomach was their proof. The night after the stomach test, Lyra could not rest. Her body still carried the fire of the pepper, the sting of the onion, the weight of the fermented beans. Every breath reminded her of the pain, yet inside that pain was pride. She had survived something her people believed impossible. And more than that, she had seen the truth of humanity with her own eyes. The next morning, whispers spread across the alien crew. Some laughed at her recklessness, saying she had broken the rules. Others looked at her with wide, fearful eyes. To them, she was no longer simply Lyra. She was the one who had tasted human fire and lived. And in their culture, surviving the impossible gave her power. But it also gave her fear, for whispers turned into warnings. If humans can eat poison and laugh, what else can they endure? They asked. Lyra walked through the research bay, holding her datapad close. She read her notes again and again. Humans transform pain into strength, danger into nourishment, weakness into power. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "They are not fragile, they are dangerous." Later that day, Daniel invited her to the human quarters. The soldiers greeted her not with laughter, but with nods of respect. They looked at her as if she had passed a sacred trial. Daniel placed a tray before her, not filled with poisoned food this time, but with simple bread and fruit. "You do not need to prove yourself again," he said, his voice calm. Lyra lowered her eyes, her voice soft. "But I want to understand, not just survive." Daniel studied her for a moment, then leaned forward. "Then listen closely, little one. What you saw in the stomach test is only a reflection of who we are. Every human carries it." He pointed to his chest, his voice firm. "We do not run from pain. We endure it. We do not fear poison. We tame it. We do not surrender to weakness. We turn it into strength." His words echoed in her mind like thunder. She realized then that humanity's strength was not in weapons, but in their refusal to yield. That evening, the Alien Council called a meeting. Leaders from her species sat in tall chairs, their silver robes shining in the dim light. Lyra was brought before them, her datapad in her hands. She reported everything she had seen, everything she had tasted. At first, the council laughed, dismissing her words. "It is impossible. No stomach can survive such poison," one elder scoffed. But when Lyra lifted her silver sleeve and showed her trembling hand, still shaking from the fire of the pepper, the laughter died. Her voice was low but steady. "I endure because I follow them, but for humans, it is daily life." The council fell silent. They whispered among themselves, unease growing in their eyes. One elder spoke at last. "If what you say is true, then humanity is not weak. They are dangerous survivors." Another added with fear, "And a species that can eat poison without fear may survive anything." Lyra looked down, realizing the weight of her words. She had not meant to bring fear, only understanding. But fear had grown on its own, spreading like fire across dry grass. That night, as she returned to her chamber, Daniel was waiting at her door. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried a sharp edge. "So, you told them," he said quietly. Lyra lowered her head. "I could not hide the truth." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low but heavy with warning. "Then be ready, because once fear begins, respect always follows. But sometimes respect comes with danger." Lyra frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Daniel's gaze darkened. "Your people may respect us now, but they will also fear us. And when fear grows too strong, some may think of war." Her chest tightened at the words. She had not thought of war, only of survival, only of truth. But Daniel's warning struck deep inside her. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I did not want this. I only wanted to understand." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, his tone softer now. "You did well, little one. Respect begins with fear, but fear can also become trust if you choose wisely." The next morning, Lyra noticed the change. Where aliens once mocked humans as fragile, now they stepped aside when Daniel walked past. Where they once sneered at human meals, now they whispered in awe of the fire humans could eat. Respect had begun to grow, slowly but surely. But in Lyra's heart, respect carried both admiration and fear. That evening, she wrote her final note for the day, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. Humans eat the impossible. They endure what no other species dares, and now the galaxy will see them not as weak, but as survivors. Her hand trembled as she added one last thought. But if their hunger for survival never ends, then what else will they consume? Respect may not be the end. It may only be the beginning. The research ship drifted in silence above Earth. But inside, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Lyra walked through the corridors, her data pad pressed tightly to her chest. Everywhere she went, she felt the change. Aliens who once laughed at humans now spoke in whispers when a human passed. Soldiers who once mocked Daniel now avoided his gaze. Fear had turned to respect, but respect carried shadows of something darker. Lyra entered her chamber and sat by the glowing screen. Her notes filled the display, line after line of observations. Humans can eat poison and live. They can drink acid and grow stronger. They can turn pain into laughter. Her silver fingers trembled as she scrolled through her findings. The more she read, the more one truth became clear. Humans were not weak creatures wandering the stars. They were survivors of a deadly world, shaped by fire, hunger, and pain. But Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. The walls shook as the ship shifted into battle formation. She rushed to the command deck, her heart racing. The alien council was already gathered, their silver robes flowing as they shouted orders. Through the viewing glass, Lyra saw human ships approaching in formation. Not in attack, but in defense, their weapons powered yet not fired. The council leader's voice echoed, sharp and fearful. "We must be cautious. Their resilience makes them dangerous." Lyra froze, her silver eyes wide. She realized the council no longer saw humans as research subjects. They saw them as potential enemies. Fear had grown too quickly. Her voice shook as she stepped forward. "No, you are wrong. They do not wish for war. They only wish to endure." But the council ignored her, their fear drowning her words. Suddenly, the viewing screen changed. Daniel appeared, his face calm but stern. His voice carried the weight of storms. "We do not seek war," he said, "but if you think we are fragile, then test us, and you will see the truth." The council chamber fell silent. Lyra's heart pounded. She saw it in his eyes, the same fire she had seen in the dining hall, the same fire that burned when he ate poisoned food and laughed. It was the fire of survival, unstoppable and unyielding. Lyra whispered to herself. The stomach test was only the beginning. Her chest tightened as she realized the council's fear might push them toward conflict. If war ever came, humans would not break. They would endure, they would adapt, they would survive. And perhaps they would even win. That night, Lyra recorded her final log. Her silver eyes glowed in the dim light as her voice carried across the recorder. "I have seen the truth with my own eyes," she began. "Humans eat the impossible. Their stomach is more than an organ. It is a symbol of their will. It is proof that pain does not destroy them. It makes them stronger." Her hand shook as she continued. "They endure fire, acid, and poison, and laugh as if it were nothing. If such creatures turn their will toward conquest, then nothing in the galaxy may stand against them." She paused, her voice breaking with fear and admiration. "But if their hunger is not only for food, but for survival itself, then one day they may consume more than meals. They may consume empires. They may consume the galaxy." The recorder ended with silence. Lyra leaned back in her chair, her silver skin pale in the glow of the screen. Her heart pounded with both dread and wonder. She had come to study humans, to uncover their strange biology. But instead, she had discovered a truth that shook her very world. Humans were not fragile. They were dangerous, unbreakable, and endless in their will to endure. As the ship drifted through the stars, Lyra whispered her final thought into the darkness. The galaxy is not ready for the hunger of humanity. And somewhere, aboard the human ships, Daniel smiled faintly, not with joy, but with the quiet confidence of a survivor who knew the truth. The test was over, but the real challenge had only just begun.